This is a story that I didn't get to in the news when we started the show back at 3 Eastern, but is an interesting development, which we don't know if this is going to continue as an issue. But I talked about, and we've been talking about quite extensively, that Pantera are, as I'm calling them, Pantera 2.0, are out there everywhere around the globe and are getting booked everywhere, as you would imagine, especially using that name and using those songs being played live, and the interest level and the need for concert promoters to have something that will be of interest and is fresh as a logo, you know, and a name on these lineups each year. So Pantera checks all those boxes. So to no surprise, it has become, you know, a big addition to every festival. When this was announced, I said you will see it on every festival in the world, and it's exactly that, as well as shows with Metallica and as well as headlining shows. But there's one place where you are not going to see Pantera, which was originally announced to be happening, and that is in Nuremberg, or I'm probably not saying this right, Nürburgring and Nürnberg, Germany. This is a story that came out earlier today in NME, New Music Express, which is a very respected British music publication. And it reads, 2 major German festivals have removed Pantera from the lineup over an outcry relating to past allegations of racism. The reformed band, featuring Phil Anselmo, Rex Brown, Zakk Wylde, and Charlie Benanti, were due to perform at this year's Rock am Ring and Rock im Park, 2 simultaneous festivals that take place between June 2nd and 4th in Germany. And it lists those 2 cities that they're in, which I'm not going to try to pronounce again. Now, the article goes on to say, now organizers have released a statement saying that the band's appearances have been pulled from the schedule following the outcry. Quote, the band Pantera will not perform at Rock im Park and Rock am Ring 2023 as announced. The statement went on to say, in the last few weeks, we have had many intensive conversations with artists, our partners, and you, the festival fans. We have continued to deal with the criticism together and decided to remove the band from the program. That is major. And what's really interesting about that statement is they are saying that there was pushback from fans, their partners, which would mean their sponsors, advertisers, which of course really move the needle, and artists. That's the interesting one, that apparently other artists on the bill said they did not want Pantera on. Now, I'm looking at the billing, and some of the other headlining artists include some bands that are obviously German that I'm not aware of. Die Toten Hasen, I don't know who that is. But other bands on the bill, it's an eclectic mix, but Rise Against, Limp Bizkit, Kings of Leon, Tenacious D, Bring Me the Horizon, Machine Gun Kelly, Architects, Evanescence. Just looking at some of the top bands. Fever 333, which last check, I didn't even have a band. I mean, they used to come out with no bass player and just run a track. Maybe the whole thing's a track now. I don't know. Or maybe they got some new band members. I don't know. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see. You know, I mean, I don't know if any of these artists are going to come forward saying they also endorse this move. But the press release did specifically mention some artists having a problem with it as well. It says that NME has reached out to Pantera for a comment, which I guess has not happened yet. The story goes on to say the allegations of racism date back to 2016, when frontman Phil Anselmo offered to leave his band down following an incident in which he was filmed carrying out a Nazi salute and shouting white power. Anselmo was forced to apologize after being caught on film making the salute at the end of his performance at Dime Bash in 2016, a festival held in Hollywood in tribute to his late bandmate, Dimebag Darrell. Anselmo initially dismissed his actions as a, quote, joke before later issuing a statement that read, quote, "Every citizen in this entire world has the unalienable right to live with dignity and respect without hate or oppression. And I mean this with all of my crushed yet guilty heart." And then his statement went on from there. He later issued a video apology, said it's unfortunate that this has impacted his band. At the time, the band he was doing was down. And there were artists at the time that did speak out against Anselmo, none more so than Rob Flynn of Machine Head. And then Rob Flynn and Anselmo got into it a little bit on social media at the time, if you remember, and went on to duke it out a little bit there. The article goes on to say Anthrax's guitarist Scott Ian described Anselmo's action as, quote, "vile" soon after the event. So this is, this is something that's coming up again now, and this initially happened back in 2016, and it is now kind of not being forgotten, despite the fact that I think many thought that Anselmo, through his apologies, was able to move on from this. Reacting to the decision to remove Pantera, Rika Lorenz, a spokesperson for the Greens, which is I guess it's the local festival promoter or somebody attached to the promoter, went on to say it was unimaginable that Pantera would be allowed to perform on the same site where the Nuremberg rallies took place. Added criticism came from the location of the festival, which is where Hitler's supporters gathered in Nazi Germany and held rallies. The promoter goes on to say, "We are optimistic that Pantera is an isolated case, but will be seen as a precedent in the long term. We hope that the Democratic parties will show a unified and clear stance here, too, to prevent anti-Semitic, racist, and right-wing extremist appearances of all kinds on this site from the outset." So one of beyond the obvious issue, the other thing that made this unbelievably, I guess, sensitive was the site where this festival actually takes place and having Anselmo there. So this, again, now Anselmo, by the way, was on this very radio show shortly after this whole controversy. I believe it was the first interview, at least in radio, that he did was here with me on this show in studio after that happened. And I asked him about it, and he talked about it, and I don't remember the response or what he said on the air. Obviously, he apologized, what have you, but I do remember that conversation. And I do remember people listening, because it was in the earliest years of this particular show, 2016. I mean, that's, I think, when we launched the Daily Show, initially volume and now over on 103, of course. But I remember people saying to me, like, it sounded very intense. Were you afraid asking that question? Because Phil can be an intimidating guy in just the way he speaks and carries himself. But no, the answer was no. And I don't remember what he said when I brought it up to him, because it's 6-7 years ago now, of course. But obviously, in some areas, in some parts of the world, this is not being forgotten. It's not being glossed over. The apology was not accepted. And as a result, Pantera being removed from 2 festival appearances in Germany. And by the way, these are major festivals. These are not. This is a major European festival. This is not a minor, small gathering sort of deal. This sends a pretty big message here. So who knows where this goes? Who knows if because of this statement, things kind of flare up again and this becomes an issue again? Does it become an issue at other venues, other dates, other cities, other countries? I mean, this tour is going to tour extensively throughout the world, throughout Europe, and obviously here in the U.S. Is this the tip of an iceberg? Will there be additional blowback and issues with this? Or is this isolated given where this event was supposed to happen? It will certainly be something bear watching, but that is news that came out today that up till now has flown a little bit under the radar, although it is now starting to be picked up, I'm seeing, by other publications and outlets online. Look, I don't think anybody thought that this Pantera as I'm calling it 2.0. You can't call it a reunion, obviously, but I don't think anybody thought this was going to go off with no hitches. I mean, there's a lot of, being honest, I mean, there's a lot of conflicting opinions about this even happening in the first place in the absence of Vinny and Dime, and there are people that fall on all sides of this going forward. But we also know at the end of the day, if you sell tickets and there's interest and there's a draw, there's going to be a lot of business and opportunity out there for you for it. So that's that's the first little hiccup here. The other being unrelated to all of this, of course, Rex Brown missed some shows right out of the gate because of COVID. But the bigger issue would be, is this a sign of potential problems down the line, or is this going to just be isolated because it was in Germany? We'll see.